All right. I would just like to say at the offset that the directors and the departments have worked very hard on this budget to keep it within confines and to have a good result. It's not easy reviewing programs and worthy projects, especially in CIP, but I think we've done a very good job of presenting you with a budget that addresses our needs, but also I think some of our wants. We've all seen that there is a desire when we did our plan of development, we put that out there. We got a lot of feedback from our residents. Not only do they want taxes to stay low, but they want recreational opportunities. They want walking paths. They want things to do outside. And that's shared by both the youth and by seniors. And I think, there's a time, we always hear the saying in the weddings, a time to reap, a time to sow, a time to plant. I think this budget does a little of each. We've had great fiscal and conservative management of this town's finances for 30 years. And as a result of that this evening, we're going to reap some benefits of it. And we're going to be able to reinvest and plant and do some great things for this town because, the reason we're able to do some of these things is because of our grand list expanding. That's a constant battle to do it. You need people to come. You need them to expand their homes. You need them to build new homes. You need businesses to come. You need industry to come. And that shares the burden. And as a result, we all can enjoy lower taxes. So we can't just rest on our laurels. People look around now. They have a lot of choices as to where they want to live. We need to take care of our seniors who are at a part of their life they want to enjoy themselves but stay in town. And we want to attract young families and also families that are here and give them something healthy to do outside, especially now that the pandemic is passing. So I think it's a silver lining. A lot of people want to be outside. They want to get off the couch. They want to get off the computer, and they want to get out there and move around. So hopefully this budget will accommodate that desire. Last year's FY 2021 adopted budget was $138,911,188, and that was the total of the town side and the Board of Education. The proposed FY 2022 proposed budget is $146,541,970. This represents a value change, which means an increase of $7,630,782, or 5.49%. As you're going to see, that value change of $7.6 million will be addressed in the next couple of slides as to how we're going to pay for that. As always, the town has contractual and mandatory responsibilities and increases. Health insurance this year, a 15% increase across the board, over $870,000. Contractual union increases in wages, $860,000. Bond principal and interest, this is for the last Roads 2015 referendum in Enfield High School, $496,000 a year. This year, a new and recurring cost will be $263,000 due to the police accountability bill and its requirements that the town will now have to conform to. And this is apart from the over $1 million we spent on body cams and car cameras. So that's a total increase within our basic operating budget of $2,491,826. Well, how do we pay for it? How do we fund it? Well, as I previously mentioned, we were fortunate in that we've had a grand list increase in 2020 of $2,702,175. So the way I like to look at it is the cost of running your home. What's it cost to do it last year? What's it going to cost to do next year? You can see the increase is almost $2.5 million, but we had increased revenues on the town side of 2.7 just on the grand list. So it looks as though we have a surplus of about $300,000. But as I'm going to tell you in a little bit, we last year held the line. The year before we cut positions. This year is a time that we have to invest, or we're going to start to see dire consequences. Two areas. One, in social services, and you'll hear that at the presentation next Saturday. We have included a grants and performance manager, and we have included the reinstatement of 2 EMT positions. That's about $250,000. So we have equity here. We have about bringing in new funds to pay for the additional funds. And that's on operating our house, turning the lights on, turning the electricity, and running town government. Of course, we are dependent on state revenue from the governor. His proposed budget this year for 2022 is as follows. Pilot-owned real property is the same. It's level funded, $655,840. Basically, that's what we get payment in lieu of taxes for state facilities, primarily in Enfield prisons. Pilot colleges and hospitals, that's all other state property that's exempt in the town. That's $17,209. Local capital improvement, which is LoCIP, that's used on capital infrastructure money from the state, and that is $326,332. Town aid to road grant, which is for what it sounds like, for aid to our roads, $535,000 plus. Grants for municipal projects, and that primarily is within highways, is $256,875. The money we receive from the Mashantucket, Pequot, and Mohegan grants, $1,224,000 plus, and then of course the largest from the state, the education cost sharing, our base entitlement to the board is $29,551,000. So the money we receive from the state is going to be approximately $32,567,817. On paper, it's 2.4% more than last year, or projected to be $778,692. We didn't count on any of the increase. We level funded because in Enfield we don't count our chickens until they're hatched. So we hope it comes, but we didn't include it in our budget projections. Likewise, we've heard much about the American Rescue Act funding. This is for COVID relief. Best on our best projections because of information we've received from Representative Arnone and Congressman Courtney. It appears that our allocation to the town on the town side, which does not include the Board of Ed, which is actually exceeds this amount, is projected to be $8,216,404. Just going to touch on it briefly, because the guidance on this, and it's evolving every day. CCM is going to have a seminar, then they cancel it. CROG is going to have one, then they cancel it. Our accountant is going to have it, and then they cancel it, because nobody truly understands everything that's in this act because it's so complex and it's long. But a couple of things we have been assured of: town municipalities cannot cut their taxes. If you cut your taxes, you will not get the funding. You cannot delay planned tax increases, because that's really the same thing by another method, and they don't want you supplanting your operating budgets with this federal money. What can it be used for? Well, among other things, and what we're going to focus on, what we know they've said we can use it on, is sewer, water projects, and COVID-related projects are eligible. So we intend, if we receive this money appropriately, we've leased the Enfield Express, and we're going to talk about that. That's been an integral part of our COVID response. We're going to seek to spend some of those funds to purchase the building. And we have pump stations that we deferred doing because we understand we may be eligible to spend this money. And in total, that represents about $2 million of funding that we would be able to use for CIP infrastructure from the federal government. I told you about the two sides. The two sides is we have about $2.7 million on our operating, how to run the town, and we've paid for that with the increase in the grand list and some higher than expected returns on investments. The other part of the budget, which we look at every year, is the CIP, the Capital Improvement Program. These are programs that go across the town. There's never enough money to do them all, so we prioritize. But this year, as I said in the beginning, we've increased on the first slide. The increase is about, as we said, $7.5 million. $2.7 million is coming from the increase in the grand list, and over last year, money that we always take from our unallocated fund each year, this year we've increased it by about $4 million to pay for these following projects, which I think are worthy and are going to really enhance the quality of life in the town and make a real investment to the future. The Higgins Park walking path, $638,000. This is behind Town Hall, and we're going to show some graphics after I get through this list. Higgins Park Playground and a basketball court behind us in the Higgins Park, $275,000. We've talked about, and we're going to keep our promise about the transfer station improvements, $610,000. A splash pad at Parkman School, $100,000. I was going to say, boy, that really went up since I printed it. Brainerd Park Field, $689,000 in improvements. And again, I'm going to talk about these in more specificity in a moment. Powder Hollow is $689,000, and so is Brainerd Park Field. Brainerd Park will be a new field to replace the one behind Town Hall, and that will be done because we don't want to take away a field from those who are currently enjoying it just to do a new park. Enfield High School track and turf improvements. This is $689,000. I'm going to touch upon it in a moment. This is another joint effort between us and the Board of Education. The ADC demolition, this is when council last year discontinued the adult daycare. It was determined under the lease that we were responsible to demolish the building. We've worked with the Housing Authority. They've taken a vote. We tried to see if they wanted to use it for another purpose or for town purposes during the building consolidation. None were forthcoming, so we funded the demolition. We've had a bid, and it's going to be $67,000. We put in every year so we can do in-house architectural and engineering on state bids of $187,500. We've identified very exciting, a lot of great things the library's done during COVID. There's been a need, and we need to upgrade the community room, and that's $40,000. The Orlando Drive culvert, you may recall a couple years ago, we had a collapse over there of a sewer line. We addressed that and remediated it. This has been left out there, but this is in dire danger of collapsing and closing Orlando, so we have to address it, and DEEP is on us to address it. That's $351,000 approximately. South River Street Bridge, we know of that project. This is the annual amount we're putting in to match the state funding of $137,800. The purchase of the Alden Street Gym, as we've discussed, we already put in November $400,000 to convert the Santa Darbridge Gym for a 9,000 square foot basketball court. It'll be used for that. Pickleball. There will be a climbing wall. There will be an indoor walking, primarily for seniors in the winter. And this is, we're not quite sure because we're negotiating with the owner. We have some issues to work out, but we believe it's going to be between $200,000 and $300,000 to purchase it. So we're putting in right down the middle, $250,000. Always concerned about first responders and police and public safety. We did a revamp of dispatch and bought new radios for the vehicles and our officers about, my goodness, time flies, about 11 years ago. They're at their useful end. The replacement cost of that and that project is going to be approximately $1.7 million. So we're going to start budgeting yearly now, so we have the sufficient funds, so we're putting $689,000 in. I'll tell you, we're also working, it's very exciting, collaboratively with some area towns to see if they want to share costs and go out to bid with us in addition to our 5 fire departments. So I think we're going to get a good bang for our buck. The police department, again, it's time to upgrade our sidearms and also a voice recorder system. That's $46,280. It's split 50-50 between them. On the sidearms, we get a trade, so the cost is really low when you figure what they give us for the trades, and the cost of the new weapons for almost 100 officers is in the range of $24,000 for top weapons, which have been recommended by our firearms officers. EPD Joint Operations Center. This has been a tremendous success. It's aided us in a couple of major events we've had over the last year with camera systems. This is a commitment to increase and expand that coverage for the safety of our residents and use. It's been an instrumental tool in solving crimes, going to the tapes and seeing the perpetrators of the license plate of a car, and we're going to continue with that program because it's been so successful. The rest, we have now crack seal program we do every year to seal cracks, $50,000. Council chamber audio enhancements, we did all the HD and the upgrades, but as you saw now, due to COVID, we had some deficits, so we want to address that and upgrade the chamber audio system of $47,000. The DPW fuel tank and replacement, we've done the one away with the one at the police department. The one at DPW has a limited life expectancy, so again, we're going to start squirreling this away every year so that we will be able to replace it when it comes due. That's $150,000. Interestingly, as you've seen in the federal government, their commitment to electric cars and charging stations is astronomical. It's in the trillions of dollars. I think we want to be eligible for that. We've had some talks, Kash and I, with the federal DOT that's spearheading it. I think we want to be on the forefront of this, on the cusp. So we've put in for 2 electric vehicles and a charging station at Town Hall, and we're going to try it out for low impact for blight officers and probably the couriers and see how it goes. And I think that will put us in good stead when we then look to get grants with the federal government to say, look, we already are doing it. So I'm very excited, and of course the charging stations are produced right here in town by Control Module, and we've talked to them. Kash will work with them to get a favorable price, and they're very excited to have a station in their hometown. One DPW heavy lift truck at $150,000. A sidewalk machine, a Vetrec, which is a snow clearing machine of $40,000. You're all are familiar with the two roofs we started. These are our shares. Eli Whitney and Hazardville Memorial, $241,150, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're doing an ambulance remount. We've been doing one a year. We're going to have to actually start replacing ambulances in total next year. This isn't in the CIP. It's in a lease package. That's $43,000. 10 police cruisers. We didn't do any last year. We have 16 over 100,000 miles on them, so we need to start replacing them because the cost of maintenance and repairs is going to become prohibitive shortly. But we wanted to put those in. We also were reviewing, Mr. Wilcox, the moving away from leases. We did it during a time when we were very, very short on money, and it was a way to extend funds, but it is very complicated. There is a great deal of work involved in it, and it does cost some more than outright purchases. So we'll be reviewing that with the appropriate subcommittees and have a recommendation for next year's budget. Now, as I alluded to before, well, what does this cost in the town? Where are we? We have a policy in town that the minimum fund balance requirement is 9% of the operating budget. So the operating budget is the total number we talked to you about for the town and the Board of Ed to run the town. We have to maintain 9% of that. Given the current operating budget, that would be, we'd have to have $13,787,920 in the bank for our rainy day fund. So I wanted you to know that with what we're spending on these CIP, the additional $4 million over last year, after we make those purchases in this budget, we will still have $20.3 million in the rainy day fund, which is $6.5 million excess of the minimum requirement. So we are still being very prudent stewards and being very fiscal responsible to invest in a way that behooves the community, but isn't going to put us in a tough position in 2-3 years. I was very careful with John and with Kasha to make sure that whatever positions we were funding and we were doing, we knew the grand list and what we had would be able to pay for it. Next year when we look at CIP, if things aren't as rosy, then you don't do as many projects. But we didn't bite on more than we can chew. We didn't take on recurring costs that we didn't know we could afford. So, no tax increase. $0 equals $0 increase, despite those beneficial programs that we are outlining to you and proposing this evening. The mill rate then will have remained constant since 2020. It was 34.23. Last year's budget in 2021, 34.23. The proposed mill rate, 34.23. No increase in the mill rate. We've all oftentimes told you how we translate. What does that mean? A mill rate is $34.23 for every $1,000 of taxable value. We tax a home at 70% of its value to come up with the market value in the town assessor's office, and then we multiply that by the mill rate. So for an average home in Enfield of $200,000, the property taxes are approximately $4,792, and that will remain the same. There will be no increase in that. There will be no diminution in services either. This just shows the historical mill rate. Shows that there was a modest, about a 1 mill rate increase in 2019, and for the last 3 years, including 2022, it will remain steady at 34.23. All right, where do we get the money to pay for this? First, property taxes. That's the prime. That's really one of the only ways that, or the largest ways that towns, municipalities, and cities in Connecticut can raise money. Property taxes raise $82 million a year. Motor vehicle and other taxes, approximately $21 million. Intergovernmental revenues are $32,121,000 roughly. That's for conveyance taxes, real estate transactions, recordings. Charges for services. Oh, excuse me, that's charges for services. Intergovernment revenues are the state revenues I talked about earlier from the state of Connecticut that total that. Charges for services are conveyance taxes and recordings and the like. Investments, rental income, and other is $1.1 million. Fines and forfeitures, that's usually blight and some of those other types of things, $14,000. Licenses and permits, predominantly in the building department, building permits, $944. So we have generated by that and those sources, $139,262,700 $613. Where does that money go? We developed this a couple years ago because I think a taxpayer, based on that $200,000 average household paying $4,700.92 a year in property taxes, this is what your bill breaks down to. It isn't on the bill, but we thought it'd be appropriate to share with people, and we'll put it on our website as well. 2,358 goes to your public schools. 559 goes to public works. 547, when we say transfers, that's for parks, recreation, senior center, CIP projects. Public safety is $484. Debt service, and we talked about that for the roads projects, the high school, soon water pollution control and JFK, but $428. Pensions benefits, $173. General government, which is all the other departments that run, town clerks, town manager, HR, $121. Development services, which is what Lori Whitten and her crew do to help promote and hopefully invest in the community, get people to come here and invest in and grow the grand list, $31. And then other miscellaneous, water, electric, and whatnot, $35. So I think that's a good little chart so people know the last two. Where does the money come from and where is it going? Our budget timeline, tonight, April 5th, we propose the budget. Presentations by directors to the council will be this Saturday, April 10th. April 14th will be the public hearing on the budget, as we did last year. Following Saturday, council deliberations on the budget. That's April 17th. If there's any follow-up, we have that following week. Budget adopted, we put the 19th. But if we need to meet Monday or Tuesday or change that date. We usually do it much later in May, which I thought there's no reason to wait, keep everybody in suspense for a whole month after you've decided. So we have a little wiggle room there. I don't know that it will be done that date, but hope springs eternal. And then once you do pass it, it will become effective July 1st, 2021. So the highlights: the Higgins Park walking field, playscape and basketball court, splash pad at Parkman, new field at Brainerd Park, upgrades and new field lighting at Powder Hollow Park, 2 electric vehicles and a charging station. I think it's important to note that our pension is funded at 95%, which is much higher than the average in Connecticut, but certainly in the nation. We have a strong fund balance, as we said. We'll be left with over $20 million in the bank. We received the Eversource credit this year for work at the water pollution control, which is going to help us defer costs there. That was $500,000, and we're expecting another stipend from them. And then for public safety, the 2 additional EMTs and the remount of the ambulance funded, and 10 new police cruisers. I think this is interesting, and it's fun for our residents to look forward to, because depending on the council, when you deliberate, we could start this as soon as this summer. People always ask. I know we had a booth last summer, or the last year we had the 4th of July, and people said, oh, it'll never happen. It'll take 20 years. Well, no. If funded and approved by the council, we'll start it this summer. If you look at this, this is, do you have a cursor there, Akash? On the left, now this is the, if you look, this is really behind, directly behind the Thompsonville fire station, where the current skateboard park is. This is where a new basketball court will go. Going around the entire green that will be graded, the green will be a beautiful park with a 1/3. Now, most at the high schools, you have a quarter mile track. This will be a quarter mile and a 1/3 track for our residents. What we're going to do then, closest, it will really be directly behind the town hall parking where Kash is showing you, is a new playscape. It's going to be very similar. We're going to show a slide about that for the young people, a playscape there. What are you pointing to, Kash? I can't read it. The shade structure. And then we just showed, and we're going to talk about this in a moment, above it, behind St. Adalbert's, where we're making the improvements, is a proposed 25-meter pool and a splash pad. And adjacent to that, behind Enfield Express, which we now control and hope to own, is all the additional parking, so that everybody who comes will have a place to park, whether you use the basketball, whether you're at the pool, whether you want to walk on the trail, or whether you want to go to the playscape. That, in addition to the town hall parking, doubles it. This is our rendering of the playground at Higgins Park. Recreation we're consulting with. We've already talked to the vendor. It's a beautiful, large playscape, very similar to the one that was tremendously well used at the Central Library. So it's going to be close to that because we've gotten feedback and people love it, and I think they're going to love this one too. Splash pads, splash pads, splash pads. If I heard any more about splash pads, I think my head would explode. So knowing that that's what the council has talked about and our citizens have talked about, Kasha, being much younger and more exuberant with young children, realized and came to me and said, well, and you're going to see in a moment, we really need this. People move to towns because of splash pads. It's low cost. We've factored in the cost of the water. That'll be at our presentation from Donald. And this is a beautiful, and we've talked to the vendor. We're going to have some input about, do you want splashing daisies? Do you want splashing tulips? That kind of thing. But this is a really large one because I know it's going to be heavily used at the cost of approximately $100,000. The reason we chose Parkman to start is because we consulted with Chris Drezik, the superintendent. This has the amenities, it has the water supply, the electrical, it has the tennis courts, it has a great playscape, and it has ample parking. So we thought everybody could enjoy it, and the reason I want them to enjoy it, and I hope that we're going to move quickly on this. You folks know that I don't really grow moss on any of our rocks. They move pretty quickly. Parts are tough to get, things are delayed. I am going to, if council is amenable to this, we're going to go out to bid next week. And we're going to say subject to funding. And if you want to do it, why would we wait till the budget's adopted July 1st so we tell people we're going to do it next year? If we can get it in this year, we'll do it this year. Brainerd Park, as I said, what always broke my heart when we put in things over at Alcone, we took away the basketball court. You remedied that. We put it back. This won't be loved by all, but the council gave us instruction to proceed with the Higgins Park plan. So what we did is we didn't want the women's softball behind town hall here to suffer. So we've talked and we've spoken many times, well, a few times with Gina to get her input as to what their expectations would be. So it wouldn't be diminished. It would be a new field. It would include, we have to clear about 2 acres, new bleachers, players bench, lighting, dugouts. So it's for women's softball there, and also high school girls softball could use it. I'm sure you're going to be hearing from Gina during deliberations, but this is our best effort to give them something that's better. And also there are concerns that we hope to address, being near men's softball with enforcement from our police department and making sure people at the other fields adhere to civil conduct when there will be young ladies and children there now. Powder Hollow. Bob Crosati approached me. He said, you know what? It really isn't right. We're busing the boys, the high school baseball team here. This is below standard. And he said, can't you look at it? Can't we make it something that's more presentable? I'm going to talk in a minute why we have to, bring them there from the high school. So we took it to heart. We did undertake to look at it. And of course, both of these projects, the reason they're $689 is because that's the most we can budget without a referendum. This would include a new warning track and home run fence, new foul poles, lighting, new fencing, new scoreboard, dugout, and grading. So that's what we'll do this time, and then we can look next time, Bob. But I think this is a wonderful thing for men's and women's softball and baseball. Again, this is what our community wants in our town. And I always like, I want to attract other families. But it's like, when your bank says if you open a new bank account, we're going to give you a toaster, and your cable says if you sign up now, you're going to get HBO free for a year. What about me? I've been in the bank for 10 years. What do I get? I've had cable. What are you going to do for me? So this is what we're going to do for the residents who live here, and hopefully it will attract others to come. Also, I should note that Enfield Little League and American Legion would be eligible to play here. This is a promise kept. This was, and I looked to Bill Kiner and others on the council. I thank Joint Facilities. We've looked. This is the proposal, $610,000 for the upgrade at the transfer station. We said that we would do it. We're keeping our promise. It will enhance employee productivity, safety, and help in providing the service. And we'll be looking at that as we go forward, but it has the proposed scale house, relocation of the existing scale, water line, and a concrete pad for facility waste containers. This is something that's been on our wish list. I talked to Superintendent Drezik. What is a priority? What do you need over there at the high school? They really need, for safety reasons, a new track. They also need to have the field replaced. So The council at the last meeting made a appropriation to them that we had promised. Mr. Drezek has looked at his budget, and I'm going to, at the end, commend him because, once again, he's coming without an increase in an ability to work jointly with us to provide all of these other recreational projects for the town and for those students at the school. One thing he's going to do, he believes that they will be able to contribute $300,000 towards this project during the end of the year. He'll work with John Wilcox, so we'll collaboratively fund it and replace the field and the track. One of our wish lists is, and I'm going to be talking to you after budget about a comprehensive field study and proposals to look at that and what we can do to make us really put us on the map for field, soccer, baseball. I've had discussions with Councilor Sakala on that. I'm excited about the future of it, but part of the problem with our fields at the high school is that they flood, and there's real significant drainage issues. Donald Nunes has looked, and it would cost us approximately $300,000 to correct those drainage issues, so those fields could be used all the time. So hopefully we'll be working collaboratively with him. And again, the federal money for COVID is to be used for sewage, water, perhaps drainage might be something that also is eligible, and that's on our radar. Again, the big investment now, and I laugh, the staff doesn't want to hear this anymore, but I say, it's like you tell your children, we're putting on a new roof. That's great, Dad. We're paving the driveway. That's great, Mom. You tell them you're putting a pool in the backyard, right? Bedlam, mayhem, excitement. You have to do both. So we have done that with roads. This would be the last segment of 13 to 15 miles of roadway in the town. We believe the cost, and it'll be up to council to finally approve it during the public hearings and sessions this summer, between $25 and $30 million that would go to referendum this November. Roofs. We've talked about the two roofs currently under construction and being funded in the budget. Eli Whitney and Hazardville. This is what Gina and Donna talked about as concurrent paths, that we still had to look at the roofs now. We're hopeful that when the residents see this plan to do the roofs at the police department and these other schools and town facilities, that they will support the referendum. We believe it will be approximately $13 million, and that's due to the hard work of the Joint Facilities Committee and Public Works in coming up with those numbers. Lastly, here's the fun part. We're going to put in, hopefully if you approve it, the one splash pad at Parkman. These are proposals, and they're based on really the water lines and infrastructure that's there, because to do it other places, it's cost prohibitive. But we would anticipate, behind town halls we showed you, there'd be another smaller splash pad. There would be a 25K pool, 0 entry, so access by all, a shaded area. Public Works Director said he thinks that's probably $3.5 million. I didn't want us to be hamstrung until we get the final numbers and look at it. So I said increase it to $5 million, although he's confident. One in Chicopee was just done for $3.5 million. And then the 3 splash pads, Green Manor, Hazardville, Prudence, Crandall, are listed. And parking, the parking is behind Enfield Express. We haven't bought the building. I like doing things in phases. So if we do the park, we're good. If then people want the referendum or they want the pool there and they want the other amenities, then we would put in hopefully to buy Enfield Express and pay to do the parking. So it's all steps that would be taken so we don't lose any money, and it's thought out, I think, very carefully by Public Works and our staff. So that referendum would be a total of $4.2 to $5.7 million. This is important. CCM, town government, they're saying this is the time to go to referendum on projects, to take advantage of low interest rates, construction costs, and to reinvest. We've always done it with roads. That's why, and I commend all of those out in the public to go on the town manager website to see the road referendum special that we did, bringing experts to show we have the best roads in Connecticut, because council has been investing them in 5-year plans since 2000. And that's why our index, the index for roads is 0 to 100, 0 being it's rubble, 100 being that it's new, and we're around an average in town of 82. That's our report card, our score. We've got to continue to invest it because we want to keep that up there. Otherwise, the cost of repair and replacement later is exorbitantly more expensive. Wanted to remind everybody that we have and we're close to completion now with the water pollution control facility. We hope to have a ribbon cutting, as I said, June 18th, and that was a $36 million expenditure. Water pollution control. You want to look at the left, we say drivers. I'm giving you the last 2 years, cost drivers. 2021, the adopted budget. You can go down. I mean, it's capital that you have to put into the plant, about $1 million. Interest on the bonding has been about $200,000 for a partial year. Personnel costs $1.6 million. Other operating costs $2.8 million, and that's of course chemicals, detergents, all of those things that cost to run it. Total in the FY 2021 budget, $5,845,040. Proposed 2022. Capital is reduced by $10,000. Interest goes up because now the bonding that we used in the previous slide, it shows the amounts, is coming online, so that's going to increase by $600,000 a year. Personnel is going from 1.6 to 1.84, and I'll explain that in a minute. Other operating is slightly lower, so the total is $6.556309, an increase of $711,269, or 12%. Why is there an increase in personnel? Because that's really the only thing that changed other than the interest. Because we abided by the NOVAC report. The NOVAC report told us what to do at Public Works, and we implemented to great savings. The NOVAC report recommended 5 new positions at Water Pollution Control. We wanted to wait till we got a new superintendent on board, who, by the way, is doing an incredible job. And he has recommended this year. I said, well, let's walk before we run. We're putting in 1 new operator, and we'll explain at the budget 1 new plumber, which gives us a lot more bang for our buck and is needed. That's recommended, and that's the difference in the cost this year, 12.1% increase. This is what last year, the 2021 actual adopted budget was $39 per quarter for the base rate, and $360 and $539 respectively for the volumetric charges. Our proposed budget for this year is to keep it the same, base rate of $39 per quarter, $360 and $539 respectively, 0% increase in water pollution control. Why? We talked a little bit about in Donald the $500,000 we received from the state. We're determining whether we're going to reduce the bond payments for that or actually put it into the plant. But also, as I said, we've had some better than expected returns. Our commitment last year and our input into water pollution control paid off. Remember, it's a work in progress. It's going to be a new plant. We're hopefully it's going to be more efficient going forward. But happily, we can report this year no new increase in water pollution control charges to our residents. And in closing, I would just again like to thank all of our department directors for taking their jobs so seriously and coming in with budgets basically at zero, apart from the mandatory increases of insurance and collective bargaining wages, other than the 3 positions I talked to you about. They'll all be available to discuss their budgets, but they did a good job in keeping them level funded to allow us to invest in these other programs of CIP. I'd like to particularly thank John Wilcox, Kasha Perciello, our Assistant Director of Finance, Greg Simmons, for the tremendous amount of work and hours they put in getting these numbers to match and to even out. And I'd just like to say there's going to be some interesting things we're doing to promote the town. In my budget, there's some modest increases. I want to do a town-wide brochure. I want to talk about and share what we're doing. I want to put that brochure about all the amenities and why you should come to Enfield and all the real estate offices in the town, all the businesses, the Enfield Express, at the library, at the senior center. We want to upgrade the town website, put a small amount increase in to have a part-time webmaster come back who we had here previously to refurbish it, to make sure it's user-friendly, that people can guide through it and find information quickly and not get frustrated. I think it's imperative. You heard about the train station. I think that's an incredible plus for the future. I think it's within grasp, and I want you all to know we're going to be looking at the Public Safety Regional Complex. Just to let you know, as a teaser, Council appropriated the money to buy the adjacent 7 acres. We haven't been sleeping since you did that. We hosted a joint meeting of area towns who we've gotten letters from their selectmen endorsing and supporting and wanting to use that regional facility that we're going to use because we've already put in a bond request from the state. We're hoping the state and federal government will pay the lion's share of that. Congressman Courtney is working on it. Kosh and I have talked to the U.S. Department of Transportation and Build America to see if they'll help pay for it. It's a very exciting prospect. It's going to enhance law enforcement, and it's going to address a lot of the concerns that people have with EMS and law enforcement. It'll make us, again, we're already a leader in those two areas, but this will make us a real leader and partner in all of Connecticut. So that's an exciting developing story as well. And with that, I'm done.
Thank you.